Hello and welcome to our discussion today. We want to look at um, things to consider or preparing for a successful project proposal defense. Okay, and this is a practical guide for students. I believe that by the end of this discussion, you will have a fair idea of what is expected of you for the project proposal defense. So if we say a proposal defense, what exactly is a proposal defense? The proposal defense is a formal presentation, right, before a panel. So it's a formal presentation of what you have done or what you intend to do about your project that is presented before a panel, right? So it's a formal presentation, an academic one, and in this case, your thesis proposal, right? And it's a presentation before a panel. The panel means that you have your lecturers seated, some supervisors seated, and they will vet what you have done, okay? And it is to justify the research plan, right? What you have or what you intend to do, you justify it before the panel. And the main purpose of this is to explain the research intent, right? It's to make the stakeholders know exactly what you want to do and the reason why you want to do what you want to do. It's also to prove that the work you want to do is feasible, okay? And it's also an avenue where you receive feedback from your lecturers and your supervisors, okay? More of your lecturers because you would have been dealing with your supervisor. But the main purpose is to explain the intent of your research, to prove that it is feasible, and also to receive feedback from the panel. So there are some key terminologies you will come across. We have a proposal. If you hear a proposal is a formal plan of intended research. Okay, so your proposal is a plan of what you intend to do, a formal plan of your intended research. The defense is an academic presentation to justify your plan, right? Your research problem is a gap in knowledge. A gap in knowledge here means that looking at all that has been done in previous studies, you have identified some gap or you have identified a portion of work which is yet to be done. Okay, that is your gap in knowledge, and that can be your research problem for which you are conducting the research. Then you have your objectives. The objectives are the specific aims of your study, right? So you have your general objective, then the specific aims of your study. The methodology shows your research design and then the tools you intend to use for the research. So there are several sections in the proposal, right? But in your defense, these are the ones that would show. So you would have to indicate your title page. You have to show a slide on your introduction or the background. You have to indicate a slide that shows your problem statement. You have to get a slide which will show the research objectives as well as your research questions. You can keep both on one slide if you have to, or if you have space for more, you can split the objectives on one slide and the research questions on another slide. Then you also have to show the significance of your study. You also need a slide for the scope and limitations of your study. Then you would need to show a review of literature also on one slide, your conceptual framework, the methodology, and then your references. The timeline and budget at your level, I'll advise that is taken out. Okay, so that is for higher levels where you will include a timeline and budget for your proposal. But at your level, you focus on the title page and then all of those in between until you get to your references. Right. So what do you need to capture on your title page? On your title page, you need details about your project. So you need to indicate your title, that is the project title. Your name should be on the title page as well as your the date you are having the presentation. Okay, so the title of your project work, your name, your student number, all right, and then the date of defense. In some cases, you may have to indicate who your supervisor is on the title page. So your project title, your name, your student number, all right? The institution that sometimes can be taken off. So you need your project title, your name, the index number or your index number, your supervisor, and then, all right, no need to clutter the title page with a lot of text. So it's important that you are very specific with the information that you provide on the title page. Then you move on to your next slide where you have the introduction and background. So on this slide, what you have to do is to provide a context, okay? Give a general context in which you are conducting the study. You may also explain the importance of your study and you want to show how relevant it is. On this slide is where you need to grab the attention of your panel members because they should be interested in your work. So you ensure that during the introduction, you capture every information that will make your work grab the necessary attention. However, you try as much as possible not to keep a lot of text on one slide. Use bullet points if you can. Okay, and include references as much as possible for your introduction. Then on your next slide, you have to show the problem statement. And here, what you do is to clearly define what exactly it is you are looking at in your work. You need to state the issue, go straight to the point, state the issue or the problem. You also need to provide evidence of the problem. Okay, so that it's not like you're just speculating and saying what is not. So you need to show evidence. Use your citations and references to show evidence and show the importance of this work, right? And then also you need to show how researchable the problem is. Ensure that it is significant. Okay, so all of this you have to do when you are defining the problem statement. Then you move on to your next slide where you have your objectives and the research questions. Okay, so for the objectives, you have the main objective for the study. Okay, so that is the broad goal or the broad objective for the study. Then you should also have the specific objectives, by which time now you know some of you have 3 objectives, 4 specific objectives, but your specific objectives should be clearly stated as much as possible. Instead of using the bullet points, I'll advise that you number the research objectives. Okay, then after numbering the research objectives, you move to your research questions. Number the research questions as well. Ensure that the number of research questions you have are the same number of research objectives that you have. Okay, so that you can easily align research objectives and research questions together. Okay, and make sure that they match. Don't don't rearrange them in an order that is not tallying. So if you have your first objective should align with your first research question. Okay. And then you ensure that it is clearly stated, right? Ensure that your objectives are clearly stated and clearly numbered. Then you move to the significance of your study. The significance of your study here, you would have to first look at why it is important. Okay, why is your study important? Who is going to benefit from your study? And what is the impact of your study? So these are three areas you can consider when it comes to the significance of your study. You state why it is important, who gets to benefit from your research, and then the general impact of your study once it is completed. Okay. Then you move to the scope and the delimitations, right? You need to state the limits of your study. If you are taking care of a particular geographic area, or if you are studying a specific geographic area, it should be stated, right? If you are focusing on a particular concept, you have to state it. If you are limiting yourself to a particular time, it also has to be stated. So as much as possible, you have to indicate the limits of your study, okay? Also ensure that areas that are not covered in your study are indicated so that you don't allow the audience's expectations to be taken so high, and then after the work is done you realize that it is way below what they expected. So the scope and the delimitations are to ensure that you manage the expectations of your audience, right? Okay. Then you should move on to your literature review. What you do here is to summarize existing studies that have been done in the area. Okay. And then secondly, you identify the gaps that will ensure that your work is significant. So you identify those gaps and then you organize the points you have identified thematically or chronologically. I advise that for each of your research objectives or for each of your research questions, you should have a review of literature in that area so that you can have three major themes based on the objectives or research questions that you have. And then you ensure that for the literature review, you cite appropriately. Okay, you cite appropriately. And then you can also provide a conceptual framework or a theoretical framework. Here, what I will advise that for the defense, you use a diagram. Okay, you use a model, and this is where you define your key variables, your dependent variables, your independent variables at your level. If there are some more variables, you have to go ahead and define all of the variables in your work and explain how they are related to each other, okay? As well as how your variables link to the theories that you have decided to use for your work, okay? When it comes to the methodology, you look at the research design. You state which research design you are using, right? You can also look at your research approach, the research design, state it. You look at your sampling technique, right? You look at your sample size, the population of your study. All of these should be stated. So you state the research design or approach, state the research design and the approach, right? And then you state your population size, your sample size, and the sampling technique you intend to use, all right? Then you can go on to talk about your data collection tools, how you intend to collect the data, how your data will be analyzed, as well as the ethical considerations you have decided to use, okay? As much as possible, go straight to the point without a lot of words around what you want to do. However, ensure that for everything that you state on your slide, you should be able to explain it thoroughly, okay? Then you move on to your references. Here, you should follow the APA style of referencing. That is what we have adopted. So you ensure that you use the APA citation style. Okay. However, there are other styles. If you decide to use any other style like the Harvard, you ensure that it is consistent and runs through the entire work. Okay. But since we have started with APA, I suggest that you ensure that you run through with the APA style, and you ensure that only references that appear in the presentation will appear on your references slide. Okay, it does not mean that every article you consulted whilst you were doing the entire work, whether it appeared on the presentation slide or not, you have to include in the reference list. No. Ensure that only the references that appear in your presentation will be cited or will be referred to in your reference slide. Okay, so include only the cited works in the slide. And then ensure that you list recent and relevant sources. As I would advise that you refer to sources which are not older than 5 years. Okay, so that your work will be it will be significant. If you use articles which are old, like 20 years or 15 years, it's debatable. What if someone has already filled the gap that you have identified? So I always advise that you use articles that are not older than 5 years, okay? Unless, of course, you want to refer to theories. For the theories, then you can use the very old articles. But for empirical work, I advise that you use articles which are not older than 5 years. So you state this in your work, and I believe that you will be fine. As you prepare, once your slides are ready and it is approved by your supervisor, you need to rehearse the presentation over and over again. Know what you have in the work. Anticipate the questions that are likely to be asked. Okay, and there are some questions that you need to prepare for. So anticipate and practice the answers to those questions. You need to stay confident and clear as much as possible. It is your work and it's your proposal. So stay confident, and as you explain as clearly as you can. I also advise that you dress professionally. Okay, look professional for the presentation. Don't dress anyhow. Iron your dress out and look smart. Okay, and show up for the presentation. If you are given 10 minutes for presentation, ensure that you keep within the time. If you are given 15 minutes for the presentation, keep within the time. So in most cases, you are given 10 minutes for the proposal defense. Ensure that you keep within that time and work with the 10 minutes. Don't exceed 10 minutes for the defense. So there are some common questions that you can prepare for. Okay, you can be asked why you chose the topic. You should be able to explain or defend why you chose the topic. Okay, you can also be asked what theory guides your study. And as much as possible, I advise that you pick at least one theory that guides your study, and that should be part of your literature review. Okay, so you discuss which theory guides the study, and then you also state what your limitations are, right? Or you can be asked what your limitations are in the work. You should be able to address that. And then you can also be asked how you will ensure that your study is reliable. Okay, you should be able to explain that. So these are some common questions that can come up. Okay, and as they come up, you are expected to be able to articulate your responses. Okay, so rehearse them thoroughly. You can get some more common defense questions, go through them, and then get yourself ready for the defense. So depending on how many minutes you are given to present, could be 10 minutes or 15 minutes. As much as possible, your slides should not be more than 15. Okay, keep within 10 to 15 slides. Don't use more than 15 slides. Otherwise, you may be rushing through your presentation. Go straight to the point. Maximum 15 slides, minimum 10 slides. Okay, use bullet points. Don't write long notes and all of that in the work. Ensure that your font sizes are big enough so that the panel members, whilst they are seated, can read what has been projected. All right, your font sizes should be okay, should be legible, should be readable, and use bullet points if you can. Use visuals only if they aid your presentation. Otherwise, if the visuals are not connected to what you are presenting, then there's no point. Okay, so use visuals if what you are showing aligns with the text or aligns with what you are talking about. And as much as possible, avoid reading directly from the screen. Okay, have bullet points that will guide you on what to say, but don't just be there and reading verbatim all that is on the slide. And in order not to find yourself wanting, have copies. You can keep on a pen drive, some on your laptop, save in your email, just so that at a point where maybe one of your devices fails, you can fall on another copy. Okay, so ensure that you have backups of your presentation, advantage places you would have access to, right? I believe that this should be fine for you. So to conclude, I will say that you should understand your content deeply, know what your work is about, so that you can speak to the questions that will be asked. Understand your work. All right. And structure your slides well. Let them follow the format that you have been given. And speak confidently because you know what you're talking about. You know the work. Prepare thoroughly before you go. Well, after doing all of this, we are not saying that the work is 100% correct. By all means, you will have feedback from the panel. Be open to the responses that you will get. Be open to the feedback that they will give you. So I advise you pick a pen and a notebook along. And as they give the feedback, note the points that are being given to you. And then when you come back from the presentation or when you are done with the defense, you can implement all the feedback that was given you. It will also help you to be able to communicate with your supervisor all the feedback that you got during the defense. I believe that you should be fine with this. So I wish you the best in your proposal defense, and I look forward to seeing your PowerPoint slides, okay, prior to the presentations. All the best.